everybody, and welcome to the Southern Illinois Pigskin Picks for Week 6. I'm Scott Meese, along with Pete Spittler. We've got four of the biggest games in the area to talk about, one from each conference. Let's get it started with the Black Diamond. An interesting matchup, Johnston City, 3-2, coming off a really tough loss to Chester at home, traveling to El Dorado. They're 4-1. Pete, what are your thoughts on this big Black Diamond game?
Well, obviously, a lot of people believed that Chester could beat Johnston City last week, but I don't think many people expected the high score that it turned out to be 55-7, I believe it was. The question here for Johnston City is, how do you rebound from that? You're going on the road to El Dorado, a team that's big with size and definitely still has a chance to be conference champion. And, where do you start? What do you improve upon? Obviously, I look up front first. But with El Dorado, I think being at home and still in, like I mentioned, the conference race, I think they'll be motivated for this one. I think they'll win. I pick El Dorado.
I'll go with Johnston City. I really see them bouncing back after what, it's embarrassing when you get beat 55-7 at home. I mean, they're going to be really motivated to come out and make a point that, hey, last week, to lose like that was kind of a fluke. We shouldn't be getting beat by, 40-something points in a game. And I just think they'll have too much. El Dorado, not sure if their quarterback will be back yet or not, but they're going to try to control the clock. And if they can start pushing 2-3 yards of play and keep Johnston City off the field, it could be their ball game. But I think the Indians will have a little bit too much. Let's move on to the South 7. We've got Marion going up to Althoff. This is an interesting game. Marion, had a really tough game against Mount Vernon last week, and then Althoff loses at the final horn on a controversial touchdown. There was some clock management or mismanagement, I guess, if you're on the Althoff side. What are your thoughts on this one, Pete?
Well, ever since that kind of convincing victory Marion had over Harrisburg, it's been kind of a little bit of a different season for the Wildcats. He lost to Cahokia. He had a 1-point win over the winless Mount Vernon Rams. And, at this point, you look at them being 4-1, well, how good are they? At the same point, Althoff, you lost by 3 points to Centralia last week. Centralia is always the offensive juggernaut of the conference. But I feel like it's Marion's game to lose at this point, so I'm going to go with the Wildcats.
I'm going to go with Althoff just because that Marion win against Mount Vernon was just a little bit troubling to me that it was that close, considering Mount Vernon's other games. Unless the Rams had some injuries or got some people back or just got that much better, Althoff's got an excellent defense, and I think the Crusaders will be too much at home. The next game we're going to talk about is the River to River, Ohio. Harrisburg, 4-1, going to Heron, 2-3. The Tigers, interesting team. They get a win to start the season, but then they haven't looked real good at times since then. Although they did get a win last week at West Frankfort. They're very young. Do you think Heron has a chance here at all? Can they compete with the Bulldogs?
I think they can compete with Harrisburg, but it's one of those scenarios where you have to play almost a perfect game to win. I mean, this doesn't have the same amount of intrigue as Harrisburg-Heron games have had in the past, given that Heron is so young and inexperienced with just one returning starter. Harrisburg obviously still was the preseason conference favorite coming into this season, and I feel that they're just too experienced and just have too many weapons for Heron.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Harrisburg, too. They're so big up front. I mean, they've got a huge line, tough running backs. They can throw the ball, too, if they need to, and they haven't really had to all that much so far this year. I think Harrisburg will just be too much for them. Moving on to the River to River, Mississippi, Carterville, they've won 3 in a row. DuQuoin also has won 3 in a row. This is always an interesting game. I know in years past we've all thought DuQuoin was going to win, and sure enough, Carterville walks in there and beats him. But what are your thoughts on this one? I mean, it's DuQuoin obviously is 3-2, but they could very easily be 4-1 or even 5-0.
And of course, you also look the other way. If AJ makes that field goal, they could be a different story. With DuQuoin, defensively they're fine. I think they can compete with anyone defensively. It's just offensively. Can they beat a young, speedy Carterville team, and I think that's where the true science of this game lies. But I think DuQuoin at home, with it being a strong defensive team, I gotta go with DuQuoin in this one.
I think the Indians are going to be too much here. If Carterville's going to win, they're going to have to get some long scores. I don't see them marching down the field getting chunks of 5 and 7 yards of play on this defense. I think DuQuoin's going to be too much. Their defense is not only good, parts of it are good, the whole thing's good. I mean, they're solid up front, linebackers, and their secondary. So I just think they're going to be too much for Carterville. And finally, just what are your thoughts on how the season's gone overall? Are there any surprises so far, halfway through the season?
Well, I mean, obviously, if you look at Chester and the Diamond and Carterville, I mean, we didn't really know that much about Carterville coming in this season. You still have a shot at making the playoffs. We thought they were going to be young and a little inexperienced to be this successful at this point in the season. If you look at across, Pygmyville's had some tough entries to deal with. And, of course, over in Ohio, we thought Harrisburg was going to be good. No surprise there. But I think, West Frankfort winning 2 games, I think that's kind of was a little bit of a surprise. But given how well Brian Bury has been rebuilding that program, maybe it shouldn't have been. But it's definitely, as we enter the second half of the season, there's some intriguing possibilities as we get closer to the playoffs. And who knows? It could be make for some interesting discussions right about week 9, week 10.
Yeah, and I'll answer with Anna Jonesboro. There's a pretty good chance they're going to finish 8-1. I mean, if they play up to their capabilities, I think that would be a surprise. If I had to guess before the season, I would have said 6-3 for them maybe. And then as far as like the Black Diamond and even the South 7, it's just been wild and crazy. You cannot predict these games, and I mean, just some unbelievable scores. I mean, you look at Centralia, they're undefeated right now, and they've got a big game with Cahokia this week that could decide the conference, which of course means Marion will beat Centralia later, and everybody will end up with a loss or something. But yeah, it's been a crazy season so far, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of it.
As am I.
All right, thanks for watching, everybody, and join us back here next week, and we'll talk about the Week 7 games.